finishing setting up.
Oh, good.
Your
Great to
camera
be here.
quality looks great.
Thanks. Yeah. Mostly broke because I spend everything on gear. It's a problem. I'm sure you guys understand.
Yeah.
Yes,
We do.
for sure. Well, okay. Thank you for being on. I just have a couple questions before we start, if that's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you say your last name?
Oh, so it's Notario. Notario. So like notary, like a notary
Notario.
public, but with an
Notario.
IO at the end. Notario. It's literally
Notario.
Spanish for notary.
Is that your real last name?
Yeah, it is. It's a funny story. I can retell it later, but part of the reason I decided to like brand my law firm as not my name is that when you Google notario, like one of the first things that comes up is notarios aren't lawyers. I'm like, I can't have this.
Oh my
Oh,
God,
yeah.
like
Bad
already
SEO.
working against you.
Yeah. This is terrible SEO. So
That is
yeah.
so funny.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Groove Lab podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Alexander,
And I am Jeff Odom.
and this is a podcast all about the people that make up the music industry. We are so glad you're here.
So glad.
What's been going on, Jeff?
Well, not eating lunch.
Jeff hasn't had lunch
I
yet,
haven't.
so we might be a little grumpy in this episode. We'll have to see how
I'm going to be a little
goes.
bit more like Lauren. Is what I'm going to be.
He's
like.
he's already been a little bit
Oh my God.
a little bit sassy.
Mhm.
So
So yeah, what's been going on?
what's been going on? Just
You've been playing music a lot?
Yeah, playing music. You too.
I have been really busy, and it's 115 degrees outside.
It's hot.
So
It's hot. Okay, people might not know we are in a band together.
we are.
So that's what the giggling was all about.
Mhm.
We've seen each other like almost every single day for the past couple months.
Lucky me.
Imagine how I feel. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. I
it's
love
all
Jeff.
good. Yeah.
But thank y'all for being here. We are here at Rosewood Studios,
Tyler, Texas.
Tyler, Texas. We are so thankful for Rosewood,
Oh, yeah.
and I've been recording here since I was a little girl.
We're
And
here in the
so-
drum room.
Yeah, here in the drum room.
Yeah, nice.
And our vibey little couch. I love it.
It's great.
I
We're moving
love
on
it.
up.
I know. And video.
Yeah. This is what y'all wanted, right?
No, they did not.
No.
But it's what you're getting.
Yeah. We're wearing clothes at least.
What is wrong with you? Watch this.
No.
Look, guys, I can turn off his microphone. Listen, I have all the control. I'll turn it back on.
Thank you.
But this episode is sponsored by Kaiser Musical Products. We love them. We are so thankful for them. And they helped us get this really awesome new mixer.
Yeah, they're the
I think I
best.
talked about this already, but
Talk about it again. See? I love it. You love it.
oh my God. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys for being here. And
Yeah.
then it's going to roll into the new thing.
Yeah, great.
I think. We'll see. We'll see what happens with my editing
Okay.
skills.
Our guest today is an attorney and educator who represents independent artists and brands through his firm, Music's Favorite Law Firm, and provides content to artists through his production and educational company, Apollo's Counsel. Please welcome Roger.
Hey. You actually had something. Oh, it's great. Oh, I'm loving it.
I got a new toy. So yeah.
You guys are
Exciting.
pros. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
So glad to be here. Pleasure.
So I know you from TikTok, but let's start with your background, who you are and how you got started.
So, like you said, my name's Roger. I am a entertainment and music attorney based out of South Florida. I got into the music space as an artist originally. I hate telling this story because it just reveals all my insecurities and stuff. But I grew up playing music. I wanted to start playing drums at the age of like 9 or 10, but my mom was broke. She's like, no, you're not doing that. You can try guitar. So I took guitar in school. Eventually I got drums in the house from a neighbor that was very nice and played drums like 5 to 8 hours a day from the age of like 13 to 18. And then around that time, just decided, I felt like I just didn't think I could do it. So I changed course and focused on school, and then realized that I wasn't going anywhere with school. And I was like, how do I get back in music? And I realized I had a philosophy degree at that point. So I said, okay, let's go to law school and help them out legally. And that's exactly what I did. I went to law school, finished up, and just started my own law firm. I technically went indie.
That's
That's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's a route.
Yeah. So at what point would someone need a music lawyer?
As soon as you can afford one, like realistically. And I'm not even trying to like sell my services. You can hire anybody. It doesn't have to be me. But as soon as you can afford somebody, it's good to have at least a consultation or something just to like get their perspective on how your things are set up, what you may need to do next, right? Because not everybody needs to spend 5, 10, 3, their whole budget. Nobody should spend their whole budget on legal, first of all. But when you're starting out, it's more about learning what to look out for and expect as your career unfolds, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as possible.
Okay. So
Or
I
watch
know,
my content, but it's no substitute for talking to an attorney on the phone.
well, that's a good jumping off point though. So I found you on TikTok, like I said, and I know you're very adamant about registering your work, and I'd love to talk about what that means and why it's so important.
Right. So great way to start this off is you've heard people say, "Oh, I trademarked my thing. I got it trademarked," right?
Mhm.
That's kind of like a shorthand speak to say I registered my trademark, right? Because the reality is that trademarks and trademark rights exist even prior to registration. You get them in the United States based off of use, right? But that use gives you local rights for the most part based on where you sell and promote your goods or services. So the importance of registering a trademark, for example, is that it allows you to protect your brand in all 50 US states, right? So where otherwise, if you're not registered, you're generally going to have to establish that you have a presence in that area that you're trying to sue somebody for stealing your name. With the federal registration, you don't have to go through those loopholes. You're granted protection throughout the 50 states. The idea being is that you're selling things all throughout the states, right? So you don't have to go to each individual state. You'd be like, no, I'm going to federal court. I'll see you there. I have a federal registration. I'm protected in all 50 states, right? Copyrights are a similar idea. Have you copyrighted your work? That's shorthand for I registered the copyrights in my works. And the importance of that is that you literally can't take somebody to court unless you have your copyrights registered. Doesn't matter what they've done. They could publicly flaunt the fact that they've stolen your work. If you don't have it registered, you can't get into court until it has been.
Wow.
That's intense, right?
It's wild.
Can
It's
you
wild. If
can
you allow me
break-
to nerd out real quick, what's really crazy to me is that that is only a requirement for US based works, right? So this rule applies to any work that is originally released in the US, which is also to say if it's released, like if you release it online throughout the whole world, and if the US is part of it, then it's subject to that rule. But if you're from outside the US and you released your work outside the US, you don't have to register it. That comes from like international law where basically there are treaties that say there cannot be any prerequisites to copyright protection, right, being extended. But you can do whatever you want within your country. And so they're like, okay, well, sure, foreigners, fine. But if you're here, you have to register first. It just blows my mind.
Wow, no, that is crazy. I think a lot of people are things that I've heard is, once you create your work, it's yours. I don't know what the term for that is, but once you've created something, and
Yeah.
you can show like, hey, I've created this, I think people think that they're protected,
Yeah.
but you're really
So
not.
were you gonna say something, Jeff?
No, go ahead. I'm
Oh,
listening.
I thought he was gonna jump in. Sorry.
No.
Did I cut you off?
No.
Terrible at this. Anytime people start talking about things that I care about, I lose it. So the law is that copyright protection and ownership vests upon creation. So let's say I'm writing a script. The moment I've written that script or that composition, I can claim ownership to it, right? And I have all of the rights that come with copyright law, right? To mean that I can distribute it. I'm the only one that can make money off of it, make derivative works. All of those rights automatically vest, right? So you have that immediately, but you can't go to court. So everybody, if you don't have to register your copyrights to collect your royalties. You don't have to register it to distribute your music. The whole point of it, the whole point of registration is to have that in your back pocket in the unfortunate event that somebody did decide to steal your work, right? Yeah, it's weird. I know.
It's such a different thing than, musicians are in such a creative headspace most of the time, and I think it's cool that there's people like you out there, like, looking out for them and caring about that, because that's not something that you're thinking about when you're writing a song.
No, it's not, honestly. And I get that. Like I strongly empathize with that, for real. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I got my shit all together. I'm sorry. Is this like
Yeah,
a
you
PG?
No.
Yeah.
All
If you
right,
want to
cool,
say a
cool.
really bad word,
What's a really bad word?
that's up for you to decide. But I got this.
I got some in my mind. Yeah, I'm not saying no.
I got the beeper.
If
you
got it.
need
I'll
it.
let you know. We'll count it off. I'll be
Okay,
like, ready one. What was the question? Shit.
I do have a question. Being a lawyer in Florida, are you able to do things outside of the state of Florida, or you just mainly work within the state?
Actually, that's a great question. So, my license allows me to practice within the state that I'm licensed. So, Florida is where I'm licensed. I can practice in the state of Florida, but whatever I'm doing, if it's done in Florida, I'm okay for the most part. I can go and get access to any of the courts in Florida. The limitation comes where, for example, I can't go to Georgia and file a lawsuit there. I need to have a Georgia license, a bar license to file claims there. I can't go to Georgia and establish a practice there, right? I can't do any of that. There are ways to, if I wanted to take somebody to court in Georgia, I could, like, if I had a buddy, like a buddy lawyer in Georgia, they could basically co-sign for me and the
Right.
court would then let me in. But if I do that too often, they're going to be like, no, you're going to need to get one of our licenses, bro. But yeah, I represent clients all throughout the 50 states and around. I have clients, outside of the US that I work with, because what I do is in Florida. I do it from Florida, right?
Are there some states that the copyright laws are more lenient?
No.
It's all
Copyright
federal.
law is federal.
Okay.
So that's a federal law. And
Alright.
so, it's interesting. There was the whole, like, Stairway to Heaven case that went on for, Jesus, like decades,
Right.
right? And what they were claiming there were state rights, eventually, is what they were focusing their claims on. And pretty much the whole way they're just like, dude, this is not a state law. And because it isn't. Federal law, where federal and state law talk about the same thing, federal law trumps, right? And copyright, that's the same case. The
Gotcha.
only time there is a state copyright claim that can potentially be made is if it is a creative work that hasn't been or wasn't, at the time of its creation, extended copyright protection under federal law, which the best example would be sound recordings. Prior to the 70s, they did not. That was not accorded any copyright protection, right? So something like that, you can try to make a state claim, but for the most part, all of it is covered by federal copyright law.
And didn't Tom Petty go through something similar?
Probably.
Someone ripping off one of his songs. I can't think of it right now. Probably shouldn't have brought it up. But
No, hey, you know,
Go, Jeff.
like, this is why I ask usually if anybody's going to bring something up specific. I like to be able to look things up first, because I'm going to be completely transparent in the sense that, like, the thing I geek out most in, like, personally, is music. What I can speak on the most is the relation between law and music, and I love helping artists set things up in a way, but I'm not like a law nerd in the sense that I'm not like chasing around for the latest cases that come out that are going to be like sensational or something, because realistically, that's just applying laws that have been in existence already, right? So it's tough because people are like, "Oh, can you do a video on this case or that case?" And I'm like, I don't really care about talking about cases, you know? Like,
Good.
but yeah, so I always ask people when they're bringing me on, it's like, if you're gonna bring up anything specific or anyone specific or whatever,
off the
let me know ahead of time so we can actually discuss it, you know?
Yeah. So I have a question about what kind of, I guess, training do you do differently than like a different kind of lawyer? How did you get to be a music lawyer?
You guys are really good at these questions.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Jeez. So I'm gonna guess you write all the questions, Lauren. She just jumped in immediately, like, yes, thank you.
this is our relationship.
Yeah.
I'm her drummer, and so
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
I was gonna say in real life, but this is real life. So
Yeah,
I just
Is it though, Lane? What
I
is
don't
after
know.
2020?
I hope
What
not.
is real?
it is weird because I see you on my TikTok all the time, and I don't know. Throw me for a loop. Creeping me out a little bit. Stop looking at me like that.
Sorry, I all my research and training tells me to look at the camera. So my bad. But specific training is like, okay, so that's such a great question. Not most. Every lawyer, first of all, their first year of law school takes all of the same classes. There's the same core classes, like the basics of contracts, torts, and all the other boring stuff. Then it's like college in the sense that once you get your prerequisites out the way, you can do your electives, right? And that's where in terms of schooling and training, I differentiated myself from my colleagues, because I made sure that I took every single class possible that related to the entertainment field or was about a law that touched on it. So I took trademark class, I took copyrights class, I took sports law and entertainment. I did like a seminar on internet and law, and so every class possible, right, that I thought would give me something useful to help artists, I took that class. And then outside of that, I interned at a entertainment law firm, and then I was a research assistant and stuff in school, and that allowed me to really do some great research into like the specifics of certain areas of this. So yeah, and that's where I differentiated myself in terms of like studies and training. But like for the most part, like law school is no different from any other school in the sense that you get out of it with your degree and you're kind of you go into your field and you're like, wait, what the hell? You guys didn't teach me anything.
right.
It's ridiculous. No disrespect to my alma mater. I love my alma mater, but it's just a product of the system. It's just how it's set up.
Yeah, you just kind of have to get in there yourself and
Yep.
figure it out.
Grind it out.
Yeah.
Grind it out. It's crazy because when you consider that, I'm 4 years into this now. Like I've been a licensed attorney and I have been doing what I do for 4 years. But take me literally the first day that I started my firm. there, like understandably, people be like, "Oh, you're brand new. I don't know. I'm a little concerned. Maybe you need some more experience. Maybe some other time." But statistically, if you turn around and hire a big firm, you're going to speak to somebody who's got 5, 10, 15, 20 years experience. But the people actually doing the work for the most part are going to be people in their first 3 years,
Right.
So in that sense, there's very little difference. Our bills are, lower, but
Less overhead.
yeah.
The Groove Lab podcast is proud to be sponsored by Kaiser Musical Products.
Kaiser is a family-owned and operated guitar accessories company, proudly made in East Texas and globally recognized for their world-famous quick change capos.
Guaranteed with a lifetime warranty, Kaiser capos are ready for whatever the road throws at them.
And you really don't own a capo if you don't own a Kaiser.
That's what I've heard.
Check them out online at kaisermusical.com.
I don't know. I had a thought come to my head. I don't know if it makes any sense or not. But
No,
with the
it does
amount
not.
of with the amount of sampling that goes on with other people's music, what process do they go through to get all of that approved? Because you can't already listen to a song now without it being a sample off of a song from the 80s or 70s, constantly sampling other people's music into their own music. Have you noticed that?
It's true. It's not. I mean, it's a lot of paperwork, right?
Yeah.
A lot of paperwork, phone calls, and emails. When you get down to it, attorneys are really just like glorified paper pushers and communicators. It's really what we are. We're good at communicating, and we send emails. We write some contracts, But otherwise, that's the process. Let's say you want to sample a particular song. First step is going to be, determining how you're going to sample it. So you're going to sample the recording, or you're going to interpolate the composition, right? If you're using the master, you need to clear both the recording and the composition, right?
Right.
If you're going to interpolate, so you're going to re-record it, you only need to license the composition. The exception, and this is like a very, very, like it's a nuance, but if your interpretation of the composition is based off of the master, right? Those embellishments.
Mm-hmm.
In that event, you may want to clear the master as well, because the composition has the notes and the rhythm and all of that, but all of those things that the master contain that aren't in the composition, if you use those elements, you are creating a derivative work then from the master. And so they may have a claim. But if you're just re-recording from the notes, you're good, right? You just clear the composition side.
Composition. All right.
And on both sides, you just gotta do the footwork and find the owners, right? Composition is the easiest to find, the owners and stuff, because you go on ASCAP, BMI, or whatever, and you look up the song, and you're gonna see it all listed there, all the writers, all of the, anybody that owns publishing, okay? And then you just take the publisher's numbers and call them, and you work that out. Tell them, hey, I want a license. On the master side, you got to find out what label put that out, and then you got to find that number, which is a little bit less of a centralized thing. So I like to go on Spotify and see what the claimed label is, and then what I'll do is find out where that label is based, and from there look at state filings and stuff like that. The trademark office is actually a really great source of contact info. You'd be surprised, because like, take any major brand, take anybody that has trademarks, their information is right there, public. And even if you might not get the number directly to that person that you want to speak to, chances are you're going to find their attorney's contact. You call the attorney, that attorney is going to be motivated to reach out, because if that's work for them, that's money for them, right?
Right.
So that's a great resource for finding contact information.
All right, man. That was great.
I have a question about contracts. And first of all, like red flags maybe for artists to look for in contracts. But I also have like a little side note. Why are contracts so confusing? They're written in like their own little kind of language. Is that something they teach you in law school? Is it
It's called
to confuse
legalese.
us?
Yeah,
Is it to
it's
confuse
literally called
people?
legalese.
It's like I'm
So
really curious. What's the
it's
deal?
funny,
With
no. They actually don't teach us those words in law school, in the sense that it's not like we have a vocabulary class where they're like, okay, so the meaning of heretofore is, we don't really even know what that means, right? Just like, yeah, going forward, this is what it is. And that's what it is. But we picked that up contextually. And I'm trying to, I recently launched like a contract shop. So I'm like selling forms. If you can't afford my services for contracts, I'm trying to like put these up at a lower, cost. And one thing that I'm doing is consciously attempting to make them simpler, right? Easier to understand and digest. But that takes a conscious effort to do, right? To sit there and be like, okay, this is how do I say this in a way that says the same without being confusing? That takes so much time and effort, and is completely contrary to the way that the legal industry generally drafts contracts. Most contracts are form based in some way. So even if if what you're looking at isn't exactly a form that somebody grabbed and just threw at you, it's at least based on forms. The most common thing would be to Frankenstein something, right? That's about as custom as, that's the most common form of like a unique contract you're going to get, right? Most commonly, that's going to be the case. It's going to actually just be a Frankenstein of a bunch of other forms. Very commonly, it's literally just that form. And the reality is that if I find a form that fits your needs, why would we take extra steps? It's just going to cost you more money because it's going to take me more time. We're going to use a form. With that in mind, consider that lawyers are an old profession, and before there were law schools, everything was apprenticeship based, meaning that a lot of this is things that are handed down, right? From lawyer generation to lawyer generation. These forms can be traced back, I'm sure, hundreds of years, right? To some extent. And that's where those words, like you say, come from. It's ridiculous.
So copy and
Like,
paste.
why can't we just change it to going forward? Or just take the damn thing out? It doesn't really change any. Like, some of those words are literally just
like filler, right?
they just like to look pretty. But the truth is, it's not like the legal industry is consciously going like, oh, you know what, let's keep those words because they make us look fancy and allow us to charge more. That's not it. It's just like, it takes more work to process. Do I need that word there? So it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
the courts are used to reading those words.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's like those words, like I said, like heretofore and stuff like that. If you're talking about things like mechanical royalties, right? Mechanical rights. Those other words, those are industry words, right? Those aren't legalese. They have legal implications, they have legal definitions and stuff, but they don't come from. That's not true either, because the lawyers make the law. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. We suck.
Truth is, nobody knows.
That's right.
Everybody's just doing their best.
That's
That's what it is. Everybody's doing their best.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so that's good to know, honestly. I've always wondered if people are just, trying to confuse people. So with that in mind, what are some
there is no active attempt to confuse people.
really
No. I mean, sure, there are bad actors out there, but that's not why those things are there.
Well, what are some, besides like heretofore and all those other things, what are some like red flags to look for, or like in a contract, what are some things to look out for artists?
So I want to preface this with saying that what is a red flag to one person would may be a green flag to another, right? So if you run a label and you're going to sign an artist, if I'm representing you, the label, I need you to acquire the rights to masters and stuff, you know? At least to some extent. That's a green flag for you if it's in there. But if I'm representing the artist, to a certain extent, it becomes a red flag. How much are they taking? Is it reasonable? Do we want to give it to them at all? Right? So I want to preface it with that. Going from there, the red flags come from the actual deal itself. Because that's what like contracts are just, they're just a paper form. Actually, contracts don't have to be in writing, first of all. But when we're talking about the written paper form of a contract, it's just the formalizing of a deal. And so the red flags come in where it's like, is this proportional, right? Are you giving as much as they are? Is this fair, right? And then aside from that, does it even make sense for this person to have such a right? For example, if you hand me a management contract and the management contract says that the manager will own the masters, huge red flag, because that's out of context and out of general practice. I'm not saying it can't be fair. You may explain the situation to me and I'm like, all right, that's cool. Because maybe the manager's like, look, I don't want a 20%. I'll take your masters and I'll even put some money behind you, right? You tell me something like that, maybe, right? I'm more of a own your shit kind of person, which is why I started my own law firm. Not only does owning your stuff create a potential for greater revenue in the future, but for me, mostly it's about control, right? The more hands are in the pie, the less you can control where that pie goes and what you do with it. And that to me is the ultimate thing. Like that's the most important thing for me. Because art in my opinion should just be free. Like not like free like nobody pays for anything, but like it should be allowed to be what it is. Artists should be allowed to do and create as it flows. But if you don't have control, you lose that ability to just freely express yourself.
Yeah.
You know, control is important.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Let's talk about TikTok.
That's great.
But that sounded like evil.
Let's talk about it.
Oh wait, hold on.
Are you struggling psychologically as well?
Let's talk about TikTok.
That's great.
I'm sorry.
I'm so excited to talk about this. I can't talk about this with my lawyer friends for the most part. So
You
please,
can talk about it with your TikTok friends.
right?
So let's talk about when you got started with TikTok and how it's been. Let's talk about all of it.
I didn't expect that question. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great. I
Thank you
love
for a
that.
loop.
I love being surprised, right? So I had TikTok came on my radar probably around the time I finished law school. And I really started trying to I started paying attention a little more around 2018, 2019, right? And I created an account solely for the purpose of reserving the name I wanted, right? I wasn't ready to really start using the platform and anything like that. But I knew that I was like, this is clearly going somewhere. And I want the name, not only that's mine, but that I want, right?
It's a great name too.
So that's sort of like how that started. I created that account and then I didn't do anything except maybe watch for like very loosely until this year is when my content creation really ramped up overall, right? So over the last 4 years, I don't have like much of a track record at all with social media. The reality was that I never got an Instagram until I started my law firm, right? I mean, it's not like I lived under a rock. I still managed to stay tapped in, but I'm easily distracted. It is seriously a problem. And I was like, yeah, I cannot have these apps on my phone. It's bad enough having Reddit. Oh well, we'll figure it out when we get there. And then eventually we did. We started the business and we started the Instagram for it. But even then, like for the last until January of this year, I was not the social media presence that I have been since like January 18 of this year. And since then, it's been a blast. I've honestly been having a great time. It's been so much fun just honestly doing whatever the fuck I want. Like it's just great. And then to see the reactions from people. My favorite thing is when I create a post that actively is like roasting artists and they're in the comments. They're like their favorites. They're like, oh my God, that's me. I suck. I honestly, I love that. That's so much fun for me. But also in a much more real sense, when people, they're like, this has been really helpful actually. This actually just came up for me, so this is perfect timing. Like those comments, they mean the world to me. Because that's why I do this, that's why I bought all this gear that I'm still learning how to use because I'm an idiot. Yeah, man. Anybody watching this that's going to start their social media journey and has no understanding of like video and content production gear, like just literally start as simple as possible because I got a decent camera 2 years ago. And like literally 2 weeks ago or 3 is when it literally all clicked for me, like the whole exposure, right? Camera exposure, it finally clicked for me after 2 years. And I took photography in high school, but that was so long ago, Start simple, y'all, because it's ridiculous. It's a lot of like the more components you add to your setup, the more likely something goes wrong, the more you have to learn about. Start with one piece of gear, ideally sound, and then lighting, and then you can jump to a camera. But I am on a tangent.
No,
No, I'm
good,
enjoying
you're
it.
good. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're doing.
No, it's so cool though. I scrolled back as far as TikTok would let me, and I was looking at your videos, and it was cool to see like I think like March maybe, or maybe I'm wrong with the date, but you had like there's some videos with just like barely any views, and it's cool to see like where you've come, and honestly a short amount of time, because now you've got like over 3,000 TikTok followers, and you've got people that like come to your page for help and for information, and it's just cool to see.
It's really nice, actually. I'm smiling because yeah, you're right. It's been nice. There are people that have grown faster than me in less time, but there's still a sense in which I didn't think I was going to build a following community as quickly as I have on TikTok. And to say like I remember I remember hitting 1,000 followers and I was like, wow, that was so much sooner than I expected. Guys, I'm not ready to go live. I was expecting to do this like in a month or so, and that was March. I still haven't gone live. I'm working up to it.
That's
I'm working up
intense,
to it for sure.
honestly.
But yeah, I gotta take some of those posts and like put them out again.
Yeah, because
There are some there that I'm very I'm like, damn, I love that one so much. Nobody saw it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to put those out again.
totally
But
should.
thanks. That means a lot. It really does. I've put in the work. It's been rough. And I want to say something like I said, mid-January is when I started taking this stuff seriously. And my contemporaries, so to speak, right? People that I noticed starting at the same time, watching our accounts grow in their own ways. Some people have grown faster, some people have grown not as quickly. And to be clear, like all of my points are reference are other are artists. You know, I have no, I don't follow lawyers like that to compare my account to. But I've noticed a lot of artists that started on TikTok at the same time as me having trouble growing at the same pace, and like I see them get down on themselves sometimes, and that's hard for me to see because I mean obviously that comes from comparing yourselves to others. And I just want to be clear that if anybody out there is like, how does this attorney have more followers than me? He's just an attorney. I mean, I agree with you, but at the same time, you have to understand the context in which I am operating here. Like I knew coming in, I was like, okay, so TikTok has become the place for musicians. Everybody's there that does music. It's so much easier to tap into you guys and fill in a gap that is so desperately needed than it is to reach the general population and get them interested in your art. That's hard. That's really hard. Like I have the utmost respect for artists and what they do, like admiration. That's why I do what I do. But it's all in context, you know. I guess it shows like you really need to, if you want to grow at a certain pace and consistently, you have to find something that people need and just give that to them. That doesn't mean selling out. It's like, and I hate when I hear that kind of thing. It's like, okay, you're an artist and you want people to listen to your stuff. That means you need to get people to look at you. There is no shame in doing what it takes to get people to look at you, as long as you are not compromising your personal and artistic integrity, you know? So find something that people value apart from, or, you know, in some way related to your music. And the best way I've seen that is artists teaching other artists how to do music and arts and all of that, right? That's been, those are the accounts that I have seen grow consistently, right? With me or beyond, well, beyond me, because they have found a way to make people want to come back. Because it's like, you know what, they might have taught me something that I missed. I might, you know, whatever. Like people come back for that. But if you're just gonna rest on the laurels of your art, it's not gonna happen. And that's literally how the stereotype of the starving artist came about to be, you know, because society, in a sense, told us for the longest time that if your art is good, you'll be discovered. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that hasn't been a thing for so long, right? Like yeah, sure. Back in the days of like Victorian and all that stuff, and rich people would find children that were artistically inclined and then just fucking give them everything, right? Things like that, but that doesn't happen anymore. Like
No.
that's how we got people like Aristotle and stuff. I got into the philosophy side of it, but like Beethoven, right? Like people like that. Like those people were raised. They might not have been born rich or something, but a rich person said, "Come live with me. I got you. You're gonna do that." That doesn't happen like that anymore. You know?
No. Some of the greatest musicians that you'll ever meet will never be famous.
No, in fact, the greatest musicians in the world, you don't know about them.
That's right.
You don't know about them because all they do is just sit there and hone their craft. You know?
But they're playing, they're at gigs and they're doing their thing, but they're not Katy Perry. They're not whoever named.
They're not marketing.
Yeah, they're
Right.
yeah,
And-
because
and
there's so
that's
much
hard.
content out there. It's hard to break through with your content because you have to
Yeah.
really find yourself through your social media. You got to break through, and it's hard.
Yeah, but not only that, like
is.
it's hard to switch from like creating music to the marketing side because
Well, marketing is an art form unto itself.
it's not as fun. I mean, at least for me.
No,
You know, I mean, people have different skills with that, I guess. And
Yeah.
that's
I
something
mean,
I've always had a hard
Yeah.
time with, balancing
feel
all
you.
of that, you know?
I feel you. I would say like just I don't know. I see it as another art form. You know, like the ability to take your idea and communicate it through some medium. That's literally art, right?
Yeah.
Content is art. You're making art, and it's funny. Like this journey has done a lot for my self-esteem and my like self-worth, and I'm finally starting to call myself an artist again, even though I haven't played music in years, you know, because I realized I was like, no, it's always been there, it's always been inside of me, and just because I got scared for the longest and didn't believe in myself, that person, like that, I'm still that person.
Do you
So
still
I've
have a
started
drum
calling
set?
myself an artist. I have a drum set, but it's stacked up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's stacked up. It's like in storage at my mom's because my place is smaller than hers. But yeah, and I can't bring that out. Eventually, I want to get an electric kit
Yeah.
around me again. Not again, but an electric kit because God, I just miss it. You know, like I never stopped. I never stopped air drumming. Never stopped listening to the rhythms and stuff, and I've never stopped loving music. Like music has. I don't like saying it anymore, but without music, I just there's nothing. I don't I'm alive because music is still a thing. You ask me if you would you rather be blind or deaf? I'm like, yo, gouge my eyes out. Gouge them. Give me my ears. I need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
listen. I need to, you know? So like creating is that's what it is. It's like like creating the content and like having the vision of a particular piece and then bringing it to fruition has that's really been yeah, it's been great, man. I love it.
That's awesome.
That's a good note, I think, to
Yeah.
leave off on.
We're excited for you. I'm excited
Thank
to
you.
keep watching you on TikTok and watch all your videos.
Same so
Um,
much.
do you have any, do you want to like leave with any tips for artists? I know we've said register your work. Number one, do that.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Register your work. I guess I would say a couple things. So one, don't be in a hurry to divvy up your pie and hand it out. Okay? In the beginning, do as much as you can to retain your ownership. You need help. Duh. You build a team, but it doesn't have to be people that you give pieces of. You can pay them. And I'm not like, yeah, I know that money is tight and the economy is jumping off a cliff, but Fiverr is a thing. Okay. If you've never heard of Fiverr, it's 5 and then 2Rs.com. There's some really cheap services there that everybody needs if you need album artwork, if you need, video editing and stuff like that. And the majority of people on there and the services provided automatically grant you full ownership of what's created for you. For me, that's perfect. Because if you just like find your photographer friend and you're like, hey, can you give me some shots for my video, whatever, that unless you gave them a contract, that photographer owns your pictures. They're not yours. So get the help you need, but try to retain as much ownership as possible. Don't be in a hurry to do that. And anybody out there that's drooling over getting signed to a major label or whatever, some of y'all are ready. Some of y'all have what it takes, and some of y'all actually want that. But some of you haven't really considered why you want that. Okay. The only reason to sign to a major label is if you want to become a household brand. If you want to sign to a label so that you can live off of your music, that is not necessary. Okay. And you really should reflect on what you're trying to do. because if you get that and it turns out to not be what you wanted, you're stuck for the most part. So yeah, that's what I'll leave off on.
Okay.
That's
It's been
very-
great. Thank you guys so much for having me. You guys
Yeah.
have had such great questions, and yeah, I mean,
Well, we really
yeah, I
do.
wasn't expecting such
Yeah.
great questions.
Good, Roger.
Aw. Well, thank you so much. Will you just I'll link it in the show notes too, but will you just tell everyone where to find you online?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram, I have TikTok, and I have a YouTube. Technically, it's Apollo's Council everywhere. I have the pay. There's no content on my YouTube, but
It's there.
it's coming.
Question mark?
And then my website, apolloscouncil.com. Those are the ways to reach me, and I look forward to meeting all of you. Hey, this has been Roger from Apollo's Council, and thanks for listening to the Groove Lab podcast this week. We hope you've learned something. Stay groovy.